Hello everyone, it's Gina from orchidandopal.com and I'm back today with another bead weaving basics video, this time for the tubular herringbone stitch using two colors. Now you can definitely do this stitch using more than two colors, but I thought today let's learn how to do this stitch just with two colors, and then I'll come back and follow up with another video showing you 3 or more colors to make a thicker rope with additional stripes. These tubular herringbone beaded ropes are great in a multitude of different projects. They're very versatile, and using two colors means it's going to produce a thinner rope, which you can use to add on a beaded pendant or metallic component. For example, I just received this component in a recent bargain bead box, and I'm planning to use this rope as the sort of chain for this component. So I'll be back to follow up with what that looks like when it's done in another video. But that's just to give you an example of what you can do with something like this. You can also make these ropes with all different sizes of seed beads. My suggestion is to use the much more uniform Japanese brands like Miyuki or Toho. I have 2 colors of Miyuki here, the Duracoat Nickel and also the Duracoat Dark Sea Foam. My go-to beading thread is also the 6-pound FireLine, and if you're using 11/0 seed beads like I will today, you can definitely use a size 10 beading needle. A size 11 or 12 will work as well, of course, but just use 2 seed beads that are the same size. So use 2 size 11s in whatever colors you want. Of course, the more your colors contrast against each other, the more that spiral is going to stand out. I'll be back to follow up with some other videos, for example, for the regular tubular herringbone, which looks something like this. You can see that this one does not have the twisting beads like our example below, and this also has 3 different colors. So that's one example of that. Here's another example of tubular herringbone done in different colors in horizontal stripes. And then here is another example just to get you thinking about what a tubular herringbone twisted rope looks like using 4 different colors. So again, just other alternatives and offshoots of this particular stitch we'll do today. Those will be coming in later videos. So we won't be making a completed piece today since this is more of a technique video, but I will show you how I get started with the 2-color tubular herringbone rope. I will show you how to end your thread once it gets too short, and also how to add a new thread on to your beadwork so you can keep going. And I will give you some ideas about how you can finish a rope like this. So if you're ready to try this out, go ahead and grab 2 different colors of size 11/0 seed beads or whatever size you'd like to work with, and thread a beading needle with a comfortable length of thread. I'll leave everything that I'm using right down below the video. If you're curious about what products I recommend, you'll be able to find that list and the links right down there. So without further ado, let's go ahead and gather up our materials and we can jump into this tutorial. All right, we're going to begin this stitch with ladder stitch actually, which is a popular way to start with a lot of different stitches. And first, we're going to pick up 2 of our nickel and go ahead and bring those down. Leave yourself a little tail thread. We're not going to worry about that today since it's a technique video. Just leave a tail that you could weave back in later, and take your needle and go back up through those 2 nickel seed beads. Then pick up 2 more of that same color and go up through those first 2 nickel seed beads again. And you can see that pops those 2 seed beads right next to each other. Now you're going to take your needle and go down through the 2 newer seed beads that you added on and pull. And I recommend going back up through those first 2 seed beads again. That's just going to help strengthen this end and bring those together. And go back down through the 2nd row, holding those while you pull. You have something like that still. And now we're going to be adding on 2 rows of the other color. So I'm going to pick up 2 sea foam, and I'm going to take my needle and go down through those 2 nickel seed beads on the end, pull, and you can see that sits those 2 sea foam colors off to the right hand side. Now with my thread coming out from the bottom of this middle row, I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to go up through the 2 new seed beads that we just added and pull. And we want 1 more row of that seafoam color. So I'm picking up 2 more beads, and then I'm going to go up through the 2 seafoam beads on the end, and it pops those 2 right into place off to the right. Now we're going to go down through those newest seafoam beads and pull. And I have my tail thread coming down out of this side, and I have my working thread coming down out of this side. We want to fold these beads like that, right in half, bringing those together so you have 2 on each side. And with my needle, my working thread coming down out of the seafoam bead right here, I want to bring that up through the 2 nickel colored seed beads on the other end. We want to bring these beads together into a little ring. So now you should have something that looks like this. You can see they're starting to come together. My working thread is coming up out of this nickel seed bead right there. And to reinforce this, I'm going to go back down through the 2 seafoam beads that are adjacent to that. And pull. And now just take your needle between the 2 seafoam beads and go under the thread bridge. It's right there in between the 2 beads. That'll make a loop. Pass your needle through that loop and make a 1/2 inch knot right there. And then pass down through that same row of seafoam beads that you had just exited from. And then return up through the 2 seafoam beads that are on the right. So this is the base that you want to start with. My working thread's coming out of the seafoam color on the right hand side out of the top. And we're ready to pick up 2 more seafoam to start building on top of this tower. And we're going to start out just with regular tubular herringbone, which goes a little something like this. You want to first pick up 2 of that same color. The way that you know you need to pick up that color is because that's the color you're coming up out of. So picking up 2 more, and then going down through the 2 seed beads on the left of that same color, and pull. And now you can see our tower of seed beads. We have 3 seafoam on the side, still 2 nickel on the other side. We need to go up through the 2 nickel to even out the number of towers. So we need to now pick up 2 nickel seed beads and we're going to go down through the 2 nickel seed beads on the left. And now you can see we've got 3 rows on that side and we've got 3 rows on this side of the seafoam. And we need to be coming out of the seafoam color to continue to add on to our tower because now we're working on that color. So let's go through all 3 of those seafoam beads that we get to on the right hand side. And because we've made multiple passes through these rows, it's starting to feel more secure. And we won't have to go down through all the beads again when we do this 4th row. So you can pick up 2 seafoam, go down through just the top seafoam bead on the left, pull. You can see now that's got a stack of 4 seed beads. Give this a little quarter turn and take your needle and go up through that top nickel colored seed bead. You pull that and it starts to bring those rows together again. And now because you're coming out of the nickel seed bead, that's what color you need to add on. So once again, we're going to pick up 2 of those and we're going to return down through the nickel seed bead just on the top left. When you pull, you now have that stack of 4 nickel seed beads, and now our stacks match, and you have something that looks like this. And at this point, you want to be coming up out of your seafoam color, so we need to just take our needle, and we want to go directly across and up through the same number of beads. So we're going to go up through 2 seafoam out of the top right. And now we're ready to continue on. This is where we can start the actual twisted tubular herringbone part. So coming out of the seafoam, just like we would normally, I'm picking up 2 seafoam seed beads. I'm going to go down through the 1 seafoam seed bead on the left at the top. When we pull that, we now have a stack of 5. Give this a quarter turn. But this time, instead of going across and going just up through the 1 nickel seed bead, we're actually going to reach down and go through the one below it and the one on the top. This is going to begin our twist. So go up through the next 2 and pull. And you can see these beads are starting to just diverge a little bit. And since we're coming out of the nickel color, we want to pick up 2 more of those. And just like we normally would, we'll go through just the top left. Now we have a stack of 5 nickel seed beads. Give it a quarter turn. And again, instead of going through the 2 seafoam, because in normal tubular herringbone you just go right across, we're actually going to reach down 1. We're going to go up through 3 seafoam. Continuing our twist. Hold that with your thumb and your forefinger and pull, and you have something that looks like that. Let's continue on. The spiral, it takes a few rows for it to really become apparent. So I'm picking up 2 seafoam, going down the top left seafoam, quarter turn, and going through the top 2 nickel and pull. Give it another turn. Picking up 2 nickel, going down through the top left nickel, quarter turn, and going up the top 3 seafoam. Holding that tight, pulling nice and tight. After each row of beads that you add, you want to pull this nice and tight. That's going to keep your rope really streamlined and give you that good uniform spiral look. Right now, I am actually going to pop a needle on this tail thread to get it out of the way and kind of zip up that little open area a little bit. So I'll just be passing back and forth through some of these bottom rows where we just did the regular tubular herringbone, and then I'll knot that off and clip the thread so it's not in the way for the rest of the video. All right, that's better. So you can see we've got 6 rows of beads stacked up for each color now, and those rows are just starting to diverge at the top. You're always going to have a couple of loose rows at the top, and then they start to come together a couple rows down from the top. Let's continue on. The more you do this, the easier it will get. At first, it may seem like trying to learn another language, but the more you do it and just take it one step at a time, keep pausing the video if you need to after each little step, it will become clear to you how to do this, but just don't be afraid to mess up and just take your time. So we're going to get started on our 7th row. I'm going to pick up 2 seafoam, and this is the same process from here on out. Once you get the hang of this, you just keep repeating it. 2 seafoam went down through that top left bead, gave it a little turn. And the other thing you'll notice with each of the 2 colors, with my nickel, I'm always going to be going up through 2 of those to start my next row, but I'm always going to be going up through 3 of the seafoam. That's just how it works with these 2 colors. So I've got 2 more nickel seed beads going down through just the top left. And then, like I said, we're going to go up through 3 seafoam. Pull. Two seafoam down through the top left, and it's nickel, so we're going to go up through 2 of those to begin our new row. And pull, give it a turn, pick up 2 nickel down through the top left, turn, and going up through 3 seafoam. And pull. And you see that twist starting to happen. It's going to happen. You just have to give it enough rows for it to start making a full twist. So let's keep going. 2 more seafoam down through the top left. Turn up through 2 nickel. Turn, pick up 2 nickel, down through the top left. Turn up through 3 seafoam. Pull tight. Pick up 2 seafoam, down through the top left. Turn up through 2 beads. Turn, pick up 2 beads, down through the top left. Turn, then up through 3 beads. Pull tight. So that's what you should have so far. You have those 2 colors just kind of hugging each other, and eventually it's going to start to spiral. Just keep completing that same process as long as you'd like your rope to be, and the more rows you do, the more spirals you will have. Next, I'm going to meet you back when my thread gets a little too short so I can show you how I stop my work and tie a knot off that thread and then add a new one. And welcome back. So you can see that twist has started to form, and I am starting to run out of my thread. I only started with probably about 3 or so feet of thread just for this tutorial. And I wanted to show you, in case you are very new to this, how you might want to go about and tie a knot off your working thread and add a new one. Now there's more than one way to do it, of course. This is just the way I do it. And I like to first make a mental note of what color I am coming out of. So I finished a row, I went up through the next row because that's where I want to start my new thread, coming up out of a new color. At this point, I usually just take my needle, I go directly under the thread bridge that's in between those 2 beads. So I pass my needle under that, which creates a loop, and then I take my needle and I go up through the loop. Now I don't worry about tying a whole bunch of knots because it's really not necessary when you're going to be adding on the new thread kind of on top of this. It's going to be secure, and I don't want to make that section too bulky with a whole bunch of knots and also mess up the uniformity of it. But now I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to go down like through the first, say, 4 seafoam beads on the left. And then I'm going to go over to the next row of seafoam, and I don't want to go down here and back up, or I don't want to start up here and go back up. I want my thread to go directly across. So I've got 4 seed beads here. I want to be going up the 4 on the other side to keep that even and to hide our thread as much as possible. And then I'm just going to go up through those 4, pull, and then I'll probably just go down through, say, the next 3 and up through the next 3 on the other side. Just like that. Give that a pull, and then I'll take my scissors and I will snip that thread. And I'm going to add on a new piece of thread to my now sort of bent beading needle, and I will show you how to start a new thread in your beadwork. All right, so I've got my needle back, I've got a new piece of thread added on, and we remember that when we stopped, we were coming up out of the seafoam color, and that's where we want to be coming up out of to continue on. We want this to be kind of seamless. So I'm just going to take my needle. Once again, there's more than one way to do this. This is just to give you an idea. And I'm going to take my needle, I'm going to go down through the first 2 seafoam beads. And I'm going to leave a tail that can be woven in later. Just going to tuck that out of the way. And I'm then going to come up out of the 2 seafoam beads right there on the right. And I'm going to make 1/2 inch knot right there under the thread bridge of those 2 seafoam beads and pull. And then I'll go down through just that top seafoam bead and come up out of the seafoam bead on the right hand side, which is where we want to be coming out of to continue on with our beadwork as if we had never stopped. So once you do that, you end up with your thread coming out of the same place that you stopped. You've got this tail thread over here that you can put a needle on and weave back in and clip off so it's not in the way, or you can leave it till the end. That's up to you. And then you can just continue on with your beadwork as if nothing happened, going down through there and up through 2 nickel and continue on. So I don't have finished examples of this rope to show you at this point in time, but I thought we could talk about some of the options that you have, which are you could taper your beadwork back to regular tubular herringbone where it doesn't have that twist anymore, meaning that you wouldn't be going down a row each time you turn around, which is what gives us that twist. And then you could tie a knot off your thread. You could then glue these top 4 seed beads of your rope into a bead cap type finding or a cord end, something that will hide the very top of that and secure it, give it plenty of time to dry. The other option is to weave in a head pin such as this into your beadwork, close that loop in there, and then create a wire wrapped loop, and then perhaps pop on a bead cap like this. This one's way too big for this size rope, but that's the idea. And then you could create a wire wrapped loop, which you could then attach to jump rings or a clasp. That's another idea. You can also taper the end of this tubular rope from 2 beads of each color to 1 bead of each color, and then tapering that to 1 bead and then ending with a single strand. You could also create 4 separate strands, loose strands coming off of each of these rows. One of the cleanest and easiest options is to just taper this down into the regular tubular herringbone, do a few rows of that so that it looks something like this. And then get a bead cap or cone or cover, something that is not this big, of course, something that's maybe approximately 5 millimeters wide that would hide the end. And then you can get some jewelry glue like E6000 and generously coat the end of that and pop it right in. Get yourself a snug fit that would finish this off really nicely, just as one thought, but you have those other options as well. So just keep beading in the same manner. Feel free to back up the video if you need to, as many times as you need to, and pause along the way. Take your time, don't be afraid to make mistakes, go slow, and eventually you will get the hang of this stitch. So that's all there is to doing the twisted tubular herringbone with 2 colors. Again, I'll be back in a future video to show you how to complete this same technique using more than 2 colors. You are also welcome to make each of these rows a different color, and you would get a thinner 4-color striped tubular herringbone. That's just another way that you can do this very versatile technique. Also, using these 2 very different colors, you get that more obvious spiral. These 2 are much closer in their tone, so you don't notice the spiral as much. And I normally would like to use 2 colors in the tutorial that contrast much more, but I already needed to work on this piece for something else, and it just worked out to do this tutorial, so I hope that's okay. and that you're able to still see clearly how to do that stitch. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave me one down below. I always love to hear from you. Feel free to check out my other bead weaving basics videos and more to come. If you enjoyed the video, please feel free to give it a big thumbs up and hit that subscribe button while you're here because I'd love to have you back. Until next time, I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day, and as always, happy beading.